There is a whole group of aquatic beetles that dived into the ground and stayed there. Beneath the deserts of inland Australia, in water that hasn't seen light in millions of years, live close to 100 species of diving beetles that are blind, wingless, and colorless, the descendants of ordinary pond beetles that went underground several million years ago and never came back up. They make up the richest gathering of subterranean diving beetles known anywhere on Earth, and almost no one has seen one alive. Cross the arid interior of Western Australia, and you cross the beds of rivers that stopped flowing a long time ago. These are the drainage lines of a wetter continent that dried out over the past several million years. Along them, groundwater moving through the sediments dissolved carbonate and laid it back down as a hard, porous limestone called calcrete. The result is a string of calcrete bodies, shallow deposits on the order of maybe 10 meters thick, riddled with voids and channels that water leaves behind. Each one holds groundwater. Each one is entirely separate from the next. That separation is the whole point. More than 200 of these calcrete aquifers are scattered along the old drainage lines of rivers, and each functions as a sealed container. An animal that lives in the water of one calcrete aquifer has no route to the water of the next. This is an underground chain of islands, with water for land and rock for sea. In the Yeelirrie region of central Western Australia, about 90 diving beetle species occupy around 50 separate calcrete islands, with most individual aquifers holding between 1 and 3 species, and each of those species is generally only found in that one calcrete and nowhere else on Earth. A second concentration sits to the northeast in the Nagalia Basin of the Northern Territory, with its own set of species. No other groundwater system on Earth is known to hold this many species of unique diving beetles. The beetles do not have the dark to themselves. Each calcrete carries a captive community of other cave animals, isopods, copepods, and worms, animals that made the same descent from the surface and now share the sealed water islands. Within that community, the diving beetles are predators, working the smaller animals of the aquifer in permanent darkness and locating them by touch and chemistry in the absence of light. The beetles themselves would be hard for you to recognize as diving beetles, the family Dytiscidae, if you didn't already know it. They are tiny, a few millimeters long. They have lost all their color. They have no functional wings, and they have no eyes. 2 lineages dominate the radiation, and they are not closely related. Most of these species belong to either the genus Limbodessus or the genus Paroster, 2 separate branches of the diving beetle family tree, with a few additional genera filling out the margins. This isn't just a taxonomic footnote, because it means that the descent into the groundwater did not happen once to a single lineage that then diversified below. It happened to different beetles from different branches of the family tree over and over across the whole underground island chain. Roughly 100 species across 3 genera have arrived at the same eyeless, wingless, unpigmented body form by separate evolutionary routes. Whatever darkness does to a diving beetle, it has done in parallel multiple times. The whole life cycle of these diving beetles plays out underground. Larvae as well as adults inhabit these aquifers. Nothing in the beetle's development requires it to ever approach the surface. They live in water threaded through the solid rock, tens of meters down, in spaces too narrow to enter, and nearly everything known about them has been pulled to the surface through a hole. Field entomologists locate the calcretes and find the boreholes and wells that farmers and miners have already dug into them for the water, and lower fine nets and traps down the shafts to haul up whatever the aquifer has. A species new to science can arrive in a sample drawn from a single well and be known from that one shaft and from nowhere else on Earth. Stretches of the island chain that no boreholes have pierced yet remain, presumably, full of beetle species no one has yet seen. So why did these beetles go underground? There are two possible explanations. The first is called the adaptive shift hypothesis. These beetles and other animals actively move into new habitat to exploit it, so they were drawn underground by the opportunity of an open water source yet to be colonized. The second is called climatic relict hypothesis. These beetles and other aquatic animals were forced into these water refuges as their old habitat became unlivable and ended up stranded in these underground waters. Based on genetic data from the beetles collected so far, the idea of a climactic refuge is the stronger hypothesis. As Australia's interior dried through the late Neogene, its surface waters shrank and then vanished, and the diving beetles living in them were left with only one place with water, the underground. The dating places the transition from surface to subterranean life within a window between 4 and 9 million years ago. If you open a single calcrete, you tend to find not one beetle species, but a small assemblage, commonly 2, sometimes 3. The species sharing a calcrete, in many cases, are not each other's close relatives. So how do multiple different species of diving beetle end up getting along together in an underground island? For any given aquifer, it was colonized by several distantly related surface lineages of diving beetles, each making its own independent descent, so the co-residents of one calcrete trace back to different ancestors. When 2 or 3 beetles occupy the same water, they divide by size. Co-living species differ consistently in body length and do not overlap, so a large species and a small one work for different prey in different spaces rather than fighting over the same resources. 3 beetles described from the Yeelirrie calcretes, shown here, follow the rule, graded in size so that no 2 match. The subterranean diving beetles of Australia are, in the end, a record of a continent drying out, a group assembled by the retreat of water and shaped by the withdrawal of light. They show how a group built for one world is remade for another, eyes and wings surrendered in parallel across 100 species, bodies partitioned by size within the sealed aquifers so as to partition resources, and new species arising in a place with no sun.